Your girlfriend's mother was dragged into an alley by 3 thugs and taken turns with. Not only did you not step forward to stop it, but you also enthusiastically recorded the entire process with your phone. All because in your past life, you risked your life to save her, which resulted in one of them being seriously injured and dying. However, for the sake of their reputation, your girlfriend's family not only did not help you explain, but also falsely accused you of intentional homicide. When you were sentenced to life imprisonment, you looked at the video on your phone and sneered, Liu Yi. You wouldn't want your husband to see this, would you? You looked at yourself in the mirror again. Your young body was free of those ugly scars, now that you were reborn. In addition to revenge, you also wanted to enjoy life. 10 years of prison life had cost you too much, but it had also taught you many earth-shattering secrets. For example, the batch of gold buried by Lei Laozan and the Yundong Special Economic Zone, which would be established in 18 days. This was an opportunity you couldn't miss. It was time to make money. As for Liu Yi and her family, you would let them live a few more days for now. You immediately booked a train ticket to Bai City for tomorrow. Early the next morning, you practiced a set of unknown boxing techniques. This was something you learned in prison from a Taoist priest called Hidden Rules. He used his identity as a Taoist priest to deceive women into thinking they were cursed, and then took advantage of them in the name of exorcism. When his deeds were exposed, he was sent to prison. When he came in, you were already someone no one dared to mess with in prison, and you had many followers. He submitted to you on the first day he came in. This set of boxing techniques was one of the benefits he gave you. At first, you thought he was fooling you, but ever since you started practicing these moves, your body had become stronger and stronger. You didn't feel cold in winter, and you didn't feel hot in summer. After finishing a set of punches, you slowly exhaled. Your body was warm, but you always felt that this set of moves was incomplete. Although Hidden Rules said this was all there was to it, you had a strong intuition that something was missing. Thinking about it, you decided to make a trip to Yunnan province when you had time to get your hands on that nameless book. At 9:30 in the morning, you boarded the train to Bai City. When you found your seat, you saw a middle-aged man sitting there sprawled out, eating sunflower seeds and watching videos. His child was lying on the seat next to him. The words lack of manners seemed to be written all over his face. Next to him sat a girl in a short skirt, looking a little apprehensive. She was obviously too scared to move by this middle-aged man. You smiled and said, "Excuse me, sir, you're sitting in my seat." But he glanced at you, too lazy to even speak, and continued watching videos and eating sunflower seeds, completely ignoring you. Seeing this, you raised your voice and said, "Excuse me, sir, this is my seat, please move over." The middle-aged man frowned, his face full of impatience. "What are you yelling for? Can't you see I'm sitting here? Are you blind?" Hearing this, you suddenly laughed. "Damn. It's been a long time since I've heard anyone dare to talk to me like that. If those inmates knew about this, they would probably laugh at you for the rest of your life. After all, you were Brother Ba, and you were actually being intimidated by a little punk." Suddenly, you slapped him hard across the face. With that slap, the middle-aged man's face instantly swelled up, and blood trickled down from the corner of his mouth. The moment the middle-aged man looked at you while covering his face, it was as if he had fallen into an ice cellar. His whole body froze. Your eyes were filled with murderous intent and violence. Scaring him into submission, you said coldly, "Clean this up and get out." The middle-aged man reacted quickly. He immediately lowered his head and started picking up the trash around him, hurriedly running out of the carriage. Silence fell over the carriage. Everyone was stunned by this scene, especially the girl in the short skirt, who couldn't take her eyes off you. "Oh my god, such a handsome and sunny boy. Could be so violent. This ... this is too cool. I'm in love. I'm in love. If I had a boyfriend like this, I would definitely feel super safe." You paid no attention to the gazes of those around you. As if nothing had happened, you sat down and closed your eyes. After all, you had a long way to go today. You wouldn't arrive in Bai City until 4:30 in the afternoon, and you had other plans for the evening. You had to conserve your energy. But as soon as you closed your eyes, you sensed movement beside you. You opened your eyes to see a gentle-looking boy sitting cautiously between you and the girl in the short skirt. Seeing you open your eyes, the boy hurriedly explained, "This ... this is my seat. I'm with her. We have tickets." You nodded, without saying anything more, and closed your eyes again. At this time, the boy took out snacks from his bag and offered them to the girl ingratiatingly. "Xiaolian, these are all your favorites. Eat up. For some reason, the girl in the short skirt felt an inexplicable wave of irritation. Besides eating, what else can you do when you saw someone stepping on your seat? You'd rather stand than argue with them. Are you even a man? The more she thought about it, the more annoyed she became. So she closed her eyes. At 4:30 in the afternoon, you got off the train with your bag, you took a taxi, and went around the outer ring road of Bike City, as if confirming something. It wasn't until 7 o'clock that you got off in the downtown area. As you were about to find a place to eat, you heard a familiar voice behind you. What a coincidence, we meet again. You looked back and saw that it was the girl in the short skirt from the train. You smiled. It's you. What a coincidence. She walked up to you and asked with a smile, "Are you alone?" You nodded. "Yes. What about you?" "Where's your boyfriend?" The girl pouted. "He's mad at me. I don't want to be with him today." The girl continued to ask, "Have you eaten?" You shook your head. "Not yet. I was just about to go eat." A glimmer of joy flashed in her eyes. "I haven't eaten either. Why don't we eat together?" You looked her up and down and thought for a moment, before agreeing. "Okay. We can chat while we eat." At 9 p.m., you contentedly put down your chopsticks. During the meal, you also learn it. The girl's name was Penchalian, a sophomore. She was on vacation and traveling with her boyfriend. Now she was having a fight with her boyfriend, and they were temporarily going their separate ways. Penchalian looked at you with a smile. "Delicious, right?" You nodded with a smile. "It really is. I haven't had such a good meal in at least 10 years. Hearing this, Penchalian couldn't help but laugh. "You haven't eaten in 10 years. You must have had it rough. What are your plans next?" You thought for a moment and said, "I don't have any particular plans. I might find a place to rest after I'm full." Penchalian said without hesitation, "Why don't you come rest at my hotel?" After saying that, her face turned red. She hurriedly explained, "I didn't mean it like that. I just thought you could come over and sit for a while. Enjoy the air conditioning. Don't get any ideas." Seeing her nervous look, you smiled. "Okay. I'll come over and sit for a while, but your boyfriend won't be angry if he finds out, right?" After 10 years in prison, you naturally wouldn't refuse a woman's invitation. She quickly waved her hand. "No. He doesn't even know where I'm staying. He won't find out. He won't find out." After saying that, her face turned even redder. You didn't say anything more and went to the hotel with her. At 1 a.m., you lit a cigarette and sat on the edge of the bed, getting dressed. Penchalian lay weakly on the bed. Is my boyfriend actually quite good to me? He's just too cowardly. If he was as gutsy as you, I would be head over heels for him." You smiled and said, "You can't be too one-sided. There are advantages to being cowardly and disadvantages to being gutsy. Public security is so good these days. How many times in a lifetime will you need to be gutsy? It's not bad to be a little cowardly. At least you won't get into trouble. As long as he's good to you, that's enough." Penchalian chuckled. "You're a strange one. You just slept with someone's girlfriend, and you're still putting in a good word for him." You laughed. "Of course, I can't just sleep with her for nothing. All right, you get some rest. I'm leaving." You waved and turned to leave the room. After you left, Penchalian reminisced for a while before taking out her phone and removing a number from her blacklist. As soon as she did, the phone rang. Penchalian pursed her lips and answered the call. An anxious male voice said, "Shalian, where are you?" Penchalian pouted. "Silly. Of course I'm sleeping in the hotel. It's already 1 in the morning. Don't tell me you thought I was still out and about." The boy chuckled. Then you're not angry anymore." "I'm not angry anymore." Penchalian whined. "You're so silly. I blocked you. And you didn't even think to borrow a phone to call me." The boy chuckled foolishly again. Penchalian pouted and continued. "Hey, next time you ride a bike, can you stand up and pedal?" The boy asked. "Ride a bike? Shalian, do you want to ride a bike?" Penchalian rubbed her forehead in exasperation. "What are you talking about? What I mean is, don't you know that those men who stand up and pedal hard on their bikes are really manly, very attractive?" The boy said in a slightly innocent tone. "Shalian, do you want to see me ride a bike?" Penchalian was speechless. "Who wants to see you ride a bike? I'm trying to tell you that your bike is about to be ridden to death by someone else. Go to sleep." With that, she hung up the phone angrily. Penchalian's boyfriend looked at his phone in a daze. That's impossible. His bike had been at home all along. Perfectly fine. He hadn't lent it to anyone. Could it be that his parents had lent his bike to someone while he was away, and Penchalian happened to see that person riding his bike violently? That must be it. riding his bike violently. Thinking of this, his heart warmed. Xiaolian was thinking of him, she was such a virtuous wife. Meanwhile, you were riding a shared bike, and stopped in front of a stone tablet that read Hezi Village. You quickly hid the bike in the woods nearby, and took out a military shovel and started digging behind the stone tablet. After struggling for 30 minutes, the shovel finally hit something hard. You excitedly dug out a ragged cloth bag with your hands. Inside were neat rows of gold bars. Seeing these gold bars, a smile crept onto your face. Damn you, Lei Lazan. You son of a bitch, you buried it so deep. I almost thought I dug in the wrong place. You packed the gold bars into your backpack, covered the hole again, and quickly left. At 3 a.m., you chartered a car to Meow City, 1,800 kilometers away. 2 days later, you arrived at the antique street in Meow City. As you passed by the entrance of Wenbao's Eye, you bought a replica of a Zhang Daqian painting for 500 yuan. You went to a shop that bought and sold jewelry and gold, which was filled with the faint scent of sandalwood. There was only a middle-aged man with glasses. Sitting behind the counter, he greeted you warmly. Hello there, young man, buying or selling? You glanced at the surveillance cameras in the shop and said, Boss, a friend of mine referred me. Let's find a quiet place to talk. The middle-aged man was slightly surprised, but didn't ask any further questions. He led you to a room in the back. The room was luxuriously decorated. The middle-aged man said with a big smile, I didn't expect you to be one of us. Let's cut to the chase. Let me see the goods. You nodded and threw the heavy backpack on the ground. With a thud, excitement flashed in the middle-aged man's eyes. He squatted down and opened the bag. When he saw the gold bars inside, he gasped. He examined them and made a gesture at you. After you both sat down, the middle-aged man said, I didn't expect your goods to be so good. How much do you have? You said directly, 54.7 kilograms. All 999 purity. The middle-aged man pondered for a moment and said, since you were referred by a friend, I'll give you the friend price of 410 United States dollars per gram. You sneer inwardly. So shady. You had checked the gold price today before coming. It was 478 yuan per gram. Even so, you would still choose this place, because you needed money urgently. You needed to exchange this batch of gold in your hands as soon as possible. Ordinary gold recycling shops simply didn't have the capacity to swallow this batch of gold. You nodded. Okay, 410 it is. The middle-aged man smiled with satisfaction and started carrying the gold bars to the workbench in batches. 20 minutes later, the middle-aged man said with a big smile, the goods are no problem. A total of 22,420,700 yuan. I'll round it up to 22,450,000 for you. Fair enough. You despised his greed in your heart, but you said with a smile, thank you, boss. Then, you took out the fake painting you bought for 500 yuan and smiled. Oh, right, I have another painting here. Help me take a look. Glancing at the fake painting, the middle-aged man looked at it very seriously. After examining it carefully, he exclaimed, what a treasure. I didn't expect this to be a genuine Zhang Daqian painting. Tell you what, I'll give you 22,450,000 yuan. How about you sell this painting to me? You nodded with a smile. Of course. Next came the invoicing and transfer. As for the gold, that didn't exist. You were just here to sell a painting. At 5:30 p.m., you walked out of the antique street with ease, a smile creeping onto your face. You finally got your hands on this startup capital before the news about the Yundan district was released. Otherwise, it would have affected your next money-making plan. You hailed a taxi and went straight to the airport. First, you would go to Kunming to find that bastard Hidden Rules. Getting the secret manual was more important than anything else. That evening, you finally arrived at the Taoist temple where Hidden Rules was. You saw him sitting cross-legged on a cushion, closing his eyes and pretending to meditate. Seeing him like this, you almost couldn't help but kick him. What are you pretending for? In prison, you called me Brother Bod more smoothly than anyone else. Now you've become a Taoist priest. You deliberately picked up the incense burner next to you. Hidden Rules slowly opened his eyes and said with a smile, sorry. I was doing my homework just now. I neglected you. You put down the incense burner with a fake smile. No. I shouldn't have come to disturb you so late. No worries. Hidden Rules waved his hand generously and stood up. By the way, what brings you here, benefactor? You didn't beat around the bush. I'm here for a nameless book. It contained some moves for strengthening the body. Hearing this, a look of surprise flashed in Hidden Rule's eyes. Then he pretended to think for a moment and said, "Benefactor, I only have some Taoist scriptures here. I don't have any nameless book you're talking about." "I'm afraid you've come to the wrong place," seeing that Hidden Rules didn't admit it. "You said, Master Qian, you can name your price. I'm willing to buy that book." Hearing this, Hidden Rules shook his head with a wry smile. "Benefactor, it's not about the money. I really don't have any nameless book here." Seeing that Hidden Rules still didn't admit to having the book, you were immediately unhappy. "Are you taking me for a fool? Why are you hiding something you don't even practice yourself?" "Fine. You won't give it to me. Hot." You chuckled and leaned closer, whispering, "Hidden Rules. Want me to count for you how many good women you've ruined in the past for years?" You knew his crimes very well. He had been committing crimes for 7 years before he was caught. It had been for years since he started. Hearing this, Hidden Rules instantly turned pale. He stared at you as if he had seen a ghost. His whole body froze. You continued with a smile. "Guess how many years you'll be sentenced, according to our law." As soon as you said this, Hidden Rules ran out in a panic. 2 minutes later, he came running back in a hurry, holding a yellow book. He said in a trembling voice, his face full of terror, "I was blind. Please spare my life, benefactor. I swear I'll turn over a new leaf and be a new man." Seeing Hidden Rules' pathetic state, you felt a surge of satisfaction. "Damn you, you refused a toast. And now you have to drink a forfeit. And now you have to drink a forfeit." You didn't say anything more. You just hummed softly and took the book. The moment you touched it, you realized that this book was no ordinary book. Its pages were actually made of old cowhide, which had become hard and discolored. It was at least a few decades or even a century old. Maybe even older. You flipped through it in front of Hidden Rules. The more you read, the more you frowned. In the end, you even wanted to beat Hidden Rules up. Because this book contained 72 moves. But Hidden Rules had only taught you 14. What was even more infuriating was that 3 of the moves he taught you were wrong. At this moment, you felt your blood pressure skyrocket. For 7 or 8 years in your past life, you had asked Hidden Rules countless times. But every time, he swore that those were all the moves there were. No wonder you always felt something was wrong. When you practiced these past few years, you had been fooled by this bastard for so long. Moreover, this book not only contained moves for strengthening the body, but also 36 special moves for men and women. Seeing beads of sweat dripping from Hidden Rules' forehead, you barely suppressed your anger and put down the book. "Forget it. For the sake of our fate, I'll give you a chance to repent. Don't harm those women anymore. They're pitiful enough. If you continue doing this, you'll never get out of prison." With that, you turned and walked out. Back at the hotel, you couldn't wait to flip through the book. You had been practicing for 7 or 8 years. And today you finally got the complete version. You naturally wanted to learn it as soon as possible. 10 years in prison had taught you that having strong fighting power was more important than any wealth. Half an hour later, you started your first attempt. Because there were so many new moves, your first practice was clumsy, but through repeated practice, your movements became more fluid and smooth. Although your whole body was hot after practicing, this time it felt more comfortable. It was like soaking your whole body in a hot spring. Your whole body felt like thirsty rice, eagerly absorbing this heat. All the pores in your body seemed to open up. Suddenly, a wave of hunger hit you. This puzzled you. You had just eaten 3 pounds of cooked beef. How could you be hungry again so soon? You touched your stomach and shook your head in confusion, but you quickly found some food. After eating, you continued to practice the 72 moves. Before long, you were surprised to find that you were hungry again. You suddenly realized the true effect of this set of moves. It might be accelerating the digestion of food, converting it into a special kind of energy that was then absorbed by the body, achieving the effect of strengthening the physique. If that was really the case, then everything made sense. You couldn't help but think of the 36 moves for men and women described in the book. They were definitely not just about sex. It was a pity Panchalian wasn't here, otherwise, she would definitely be willing to help you experiment. The next morning, you took a taxi to the airport. After a night of eating and drinking, you could clearly feel your physique getting stronger. Your muscle lines became more defined, and you looked more masculine than before. Therefore, you gave this set of moves a very fitting name. The Glutton 72 forms. At 3 p.m. You had just walked out of Haiking Airport when a woman's voice called out, "Mr. Kaokun, over here, over here." You turned your head and saw a sexy young woman in a white shirt, a pencil skirt, black stockings, and high heels, waving at you in the distance. She was the real estate agent you contacted online this morning. Liu Yuling, after all this running around, the reason you came to Yundong District in Haikeng was to buy a house, because in a few days, Yundong District in Haikeng would be designated as a special economic zone. Housing prices would increase tenfold overnight. And it would get even crazier, of course. You learned all this from one of your prison mates, a younger brother. Looking at Liu Yuling waving at you, you smiled and strode over. Manager Liu, you're too kind. Why did you even come to the airport to pick me up? You arrived in front of Liu Yuling. Oh, it's only natural. Liu Yuling enthusiastically helped you open the passenger door of the car next to her. Both of us in the service industry have to treat you big boss as well, don't we? You said. It's just that your service is a bit too good. You even came to the airport to pick me up. If I don't buy a house from you, I'll feel guilty. Really? Liu Yuling smiled even brighter. If you really buy a house from me, I can offer even better service. What kind of service? Liu Yuling winked at you. It's a secret. You'll know after you buy a house from me. It'll definitely be something you'll be satisfied with. Seeing this, you licked your lips with a smile. As expected, MILFs know how to play. An hour later, Liu Yuling drove you to Yundong District. Your current location was considered quite remote. Even in Yundong District, it was in the eastern suburbs. Looking around, there was no sign of a big city. It was barely a fourth-tier city. Looking around, there was a strong suburban vibe. Liu Yuling also got out of the car and came to your side. She had made up her mind. She had to win you over no matter what. You glanced at Liu Yuling's exposed cleavage and teased, Manager Liu, you're quite well endowed. Of course, Liu Yuling proudly puffed out her chest. But then she sighed sadly. Alas, this is all the worthless capital I have left. What's wrong? You asked curiously. From the sound of it, you've run into some trouble. What other trouble could it be? Lack of money, of course. Liu Yuling smiled bitterly. When the real estate business was good, I did make some money. Then I foolishly took out a loan to buy a school district house in the city center. Firstly, for investment, and secondly, for my future children. So that it would be convenient for them to go to school. I took out a 20-year loan for that house, with a monthly payment of 8,000 yuan. But who would have thought that just 2 years later, the real estate business would plummet, and my husband's job would get worse and worse. Now the money we both earn is barely enough to cover the loan payments. We're really about to be so poor that we can't even afford food. At this point, Liu Yuling looked at you with pitiful eyes, looking utterly adorable. Seeing this, you chuckled, as expected of a MILF. She's much better at these little gestures and expressions than a young girl. So seductive, you thought for a moment, and said, since Manager Liu, you've made yourself sound so pitiful. If I don't buy a house from you, I'll feel bad. Hearing you say this, Liu Yuling's expression became even more pitiful. Exactly, Mr. Cow, if you don't buy a house from me, I'll really have to starve. You can't just leave me hanging. You nodded with a smile. Okay, let's talk terms then. Mr. Cow, I'm already so miserable. Why are you still negotiating with me? This house is just a small matter for you, isn't it? You nodded with a smile. One house is indeed a small matter, but who said I was only buying one house? Liu Yuling's expression froze. You ... are you going to buy two? No. You shook your head. I'm not going to buy by the unit. I'm going to buy by the amount. Hearing these 3 words, buy by the amount, Liu Yuling was confused. What did buy by the amount mean? After all these years in real estate, this was the first time she had heard such a novel term. Mr. Cow, I don't understand. What do you mean by buy by the amount? You looked into Liu Yuling's eyes and said, buying by the amount means that I have 24 million yuan on hand right now. I plan to spend all 24 million on buying houses in this area, no matter how many units I buy. Until I spend all 24 million. You were going to go all in with the 24 million, exchanging it all for houses in this area of Yundong District. After all, it was a sure-win deal. Even a fool would know to go all in this situation. Liu Yuling stared at you blankly. Her mind went blank. Seeing that Liu Yuling was stunned and speechless after hearing your words, you called out to her, Manager Liu. You called out to her, Manager Liu. Liu Yuling snapped back to reality. She looked straight into your eyes, swallowed, and said, Mr. Cow, you're not joking, are you? You really want to invest 24 million yuan in real estate here? You smiled, and took out your phone. Showing her your bank account balance, you did this mainly to reassure Liu Yuling. Because next, Liu Yuling would have a lot of work to do. If she had any doubts, she might not do her job properly. To prevent Liu Yuling from delaying your plan, you might as well reassure her and let her work with peace of mind. Liu Yuling silently counted the money in your account. She instantly perked up. Liu Yuling no longer cared about appearances. She quickly grabbed your arm, her face full of flattery and a hint of seduction. Before you could say anything about your conditions, Liu Yuling immediately interrupted you. No matter what the conditions are, I accept them all. You laughed. Don't worry. I'll definitely give you this job. But I still have to state my conditions. Liu Yuling was surprised. She had already agreed to all conditions. Why were there still conditions? Then what are your conditions? You said, firstly, I want to buy all these houses within a week. Spend all 24 million. Secondly, you continued, the houses I want to buy can only be limited to these few communities nearby. I don't want houses in other communities. Thirdly, the houses must be paid for in full. If it's a mortgage, you know we need to go to the bank to pay off the loan first. There will be a lot of extra steps involved. We won't be able to transfer the ownership within a week. And fourthly, you continued, it's best if the landlords are not locals. It's best to choose those who are alone in Haikan. Those who are obviously here to speculate in real estate. Liu Yuling didn't know why you would add such a strange condition, but she still agreed. Next, you and Liu Yuling discussed some details about buying the houses. And when there were no more questions, you two parted ways. At 5:30 p.m., a taxi stopped in front of a large building on the outskirts of Haikan. A taxi stopped in front of a large building on the outskirts of Haikan. The door opened, and you got out. This was the place where you were imprisoned for 10 years in your past life. Haikan no, to prison. There were already many familiar faces in the prison. As scenes from your past life flashed through your mind, you finally straightened up. After finishing 3 cigarettes, you took one last look at Haikan no, to prison, as a farewell. You opened the car door and got in. Driver, let's go to Haikan University. In your past life, you had 3 regrets. The first was being wrongly imprisoned and not being able to clear your name. The second was not being able to take revenge on Wang Shanshan and her family. And the third regret was not going to college. At 6 p.m., in front of the gate at Haikan University, you got out of the taxi because it was summer vacation. Most of the students had already gone home. Only a small number of students chose to stay on campus. So Haikan University seemed a bit deserted at the moment. As you strolled through the sparsely populated campus, just as you were enjoying the peace and quiet, you suddenly seemed to notice something and stopped by the dense bamboo grove ahead. A woman whose figure and looks were both top-notch was drinking a bottle of Jianshu Bye. She was crying as she drank. Seeing you looking at her, the woman said fiercely as she cried, "What are you looking at? Never seen a woman cry before." You were stunned by her fierceness. You smiled. Instead of leaving, you walked over. Did someone dump you? The woman wiped her red eyes and said tearfully, "Do you even know how to talk? If anyone's dumping anyone, it's me dumping them. With my looks and figure, would you be willing to dump me?" You thought for a moment and nodded. You're right. With her looks and figure, she was definitely a goddess. Then why are you crying so sadly? You asked. This time, the woman didn't answer you. Instead, she took another gulp of Jianshu Bye. Seeing this, you nodded and turned to leave. Suddenly, before you could take a few steps, the woman's voice rang out behind you. "Hey, want to do it?" You froze and looked back at her. "Do what?" "Go see the scenery in the bamboo grove." "What scenery? Why are you so slow? Like your woman. Come in if you want to come in. Don't if you don't." With that, the woman got up and entered the bamboo grove. Looking at her retreating figure, you touched your nose innocently. "Wow, this girl is fierce. Why do I have to go in and reason with her?" With that, you strode into the bamboo grove. 2 hours later, you watched the woman leave with mixed feelings because you never expected that it would be the woman's first time. If she had been very experienced, you wouldn't have felt any guilt at all. But it was her first time, which made you feel less carefree. You didn't even know her name. You watched her walk further and further away until she disappeared from sight. You suddenly laughed self-deprecatingly. Geez, she's so carefree. Why am I, a man, being so sentimental, like a woman? With that, you shook your head with a smile and walked away. The next morning at 7:30, looking at you coming out of the hotel, Liu Yuling yawned. and open the passenger door for you. At 9 a.m. Yuan Liu Yuling walked over to a window seat in a cafe in Yundong district, Haikang. At this time, a middle-aged man in his 40s was already waiting. He was the first landlord you were going to meet today. Huan Jiahao. After a long negotiation, Huan Jiahao slapped the table and said, 7,500 it is. But I have one request, we go transfer the ownership right now. No problem, you said with a smile. As long as manager Liu has all the documents ready, I have no problem with that. Liu Yuling was so happy that she couldn't stop smiling. She patted her briefcase and said, I have all the documents ready. Let's go to the real estate center now. 8 houses, and each one was a 130 to 140 square meter unit. Roughly calculating, the commission was at least 100,000 yuan. If it weren't for Huan Jiahao being there, Liu Yuling would have been so excited that she would have jumped on you and ridden you like a wild horse. Time flew by, and it was 4:30 p.m. in the blink of an eye. After finishing the real estate transaction, you looked at Liu Yuling, who was so happy that she couldn't stop smiling. You patted her perky butt and said, Manager Liu, you just earned 120,000 yuan from this deal. Wouldn't it be rude not to treat me to a meal? Liu Yuling looked at you with a meaningful smile. Are you in a hurry? It's not dinner time yet. Why don't we go check out your 8 houses first? The houses have already been transferred to your name, but you haven't even seen what they look like. Wouldn't it be inappropriate not to go take a look? Looking at her meaningful expression, you nodded seriously. You're right. Let's go check out the houses first. Half an hour later, Yuan Liu Yuling arrived at the first house. It was a large 3-bedroom apartment, because it had been rented to a young couple before. There was still some simple furniture and appliances. The master bedroom had a bed and mattress, an air conditioner, the kitchen had a rice cooker, and the bathroom had a water heater. These were all left behind by the young couple, and they moved out. After looking around, you two came to the master bedroom again. Seeing you draw the curtains and turn on the air conditioner, Liu Yuling, as if knowing what was going to happen next, did her lip and smiled shyly. She then locked the bedroom door. Time flew by, and it was 2 p.m. 2 days later. The bedroom door opened, and Yuan Liu Yuling came out. Ever since you two entered the room at 5 p.m. on Friday, you hadn't come out for 2 whole days. Except for the food delivery guy who came a few times. The door had been closed the whole time. I still suggest you talk to them one by one. It's easier to lower the price if you talk to them individually. If you talk to them together, it'll be harder to lower the price because there are more of them. Liu Yuling held on to the wall as she went downstairs. Looking back at you, Huan Jiahao alone had consumed 1/3 of your funds, but there was only one Huan Jiahao among the landlords Liu Yuling had arranged to meet next. Each of them had at most 2 or 3 houses, some even had only 1. In other words, you still had to meet several more, or even more than a dozen landlords, to spend all your money on houses. But you felt it was too troublesome to meet them one by one. So you asked Liu Yuling to gather them all together and talk to them all at once. 7,500 yuan per square meter. Sell if you want to sell, don't if you don't. After all, Liu Yuling still had other landlords who wanted to sell their houses. You weren't worried about not being able to buy enough houses. Forget it. It's too troublesome to meet them one by one. You shook your head. They only have 1 or 2 houses each. If I meet them one by one and negotiate with them one by one, I don't know how much time it will take. I'd rather do something fun with that time. Right? As you said this, you winked at Liu Yuling. Seeing this, Liu Yuling burst out laughing. She rolled her eyes as she laughed. Geez, you never stop. It's so hard to earn a little commission from you. What are you talking about? You lit a cigarette and said with a smile, what I mean is, we might as well go explore the neighborhood and find some good food. I've been stuck at home eating takeout for the past 2 days. It's not very enjoyable. Oh, you mean that? Liu Yuling smiled sheepishly. I do know some good places to eat nearby. Let's talk about it after we're done. If we have time, I'll take you there, soon. You met the landlords who wanted to sell their houses. There were 9 landlords with a total of 17 houses, but unlike Huan Jiahao, who had 130 to 140 square meter houses, these 17 houses weren't that big. There were some 130 to 140 square meter houses, but only 2 or 3. Most were around 100 square meters or 80 to 90 square meters. Facing these non-landlords, you directly offered a price of 7,500 yuan per square meter. Sell if you want to sell, don't if you don't. In the end, Only 6 landlords agreed to sell. The remaining 3 landlords thought the price you offered was too low and wanted to wait and see. After agreeing on a time to transfer the ownership with the 6 landlords, you and Liu Yuling grabbed a quick bite to eat outside. Then you went back to your house. Days passed. With Liu Yuling's arrangements, everything was proceeding smoothly. Monday, transfer ownership at the real estate center. Spent the whole day transferring ownership, dinner and sleep with Liu Yuling. Tuesday morning, transfer ownership at the real estate center. Afternoon, meet with landlords. Then go shopping with Liu Yuling, dinner and sleep. Wednesday morning, transfer ownership at the real estate center. Afternoon, meet with landlords, dinner and sleep with Liu Yuling. Thursday, transfer ownership at the real estate center, dinner and sleep with Liu Yuling. The reason you didn't meet with any more landlords on Thursday was because you had finally spent all your money on houses. However, you didn't spend all 24 million yuan. You ended up spending only 23.8 million, leaving you with 200,000. The remaining 200,000 was obviously not enough to buy a house. So that was it. Friday, stayed home. Saturday, stayed home. Sunday, 3 p.m. By this time, you and Liu Yuling, who hadn't left the house for 3 whole days, finally came out. You had to. Liu Yuling's husband was coming home tonight. He would be home around 8 p.m. If he found out she wasn't home, he would definitely be suspicious. You considered yourself a moral and decent person. You definitely wouldn't do anything that would break up someone else's family. So you decided to end things after Liu Yuling left. You didn't stay there either. You took a taxi and left. Your business in Yundong district was done. It was time to move on to other things. It was time to make Wang Shanshan's family's life a living hell. You took a taxi to the train station. At 11:30 p.m., you walked out of the train station exit, alone, with your backpack. You took a taxi to the Chengnan Cemetery. Half an hour later, you arrived at the northeast corner of the Chengnan Cemetery. Looking at the short grave in front of you, your eyes couldn't help but well up. If there was anyone in this world who was truly good to you, besides your deceased grandfather, you couldn't think of anyone else. You sat in front of the grave, smoking, drinking, and eating the offerings. As you told your grandfather about your past life, you hadn't visited your grandfather's grave for 10 years. You had so much to say. You just sat there, talking non-stop, until the eastern sky gradually turned white. After finishing the last sip of wine, you looked at the cigarette butts you had scattered all over the ground, and the offerings you had eaten clean, and grinned. I was so engrossed in talking that I unknowingly ate all the offerings I brought for you, Grandpa. Next time I'll bring you something better. With that, you stood up and left, facing the white eastern sky. 5 p.m. In your old room, you came out of the bedroom naked and went to the bathroom because you hadn't had much rest in Haikang, and you had stayed up all night last night. So after returning from the cemetery, you first took a good nap. More than 10 minutes later, after washing up, you came to the full-length mirror in the living room, looking at yourself in the mirror. Your body was like a sculpture, with well-defined edges. All your muscles were clearly visible. You couldn't help but smile, you had to admit. The Glutton 72 forms were really awesome. In just a few days, your current body had already caught up to your past lives. It was even more ripped and handsome than your past lives. After all, your current body didn't have those ugly scars. It was fair and clean, and full of masculine strength and beauty, especially your 8 well-defined abs. They looked very powerful. You looked at your body out of habit and smiled. Then you went back to the bedroom and turned on your computer. You had bought the houses in Yundong district. You had visited your grandfather's grave. You had slept. You had rested. It wouldn't be right if you didn't take revenge now. After the computer booted up, you skillfully opened the C drive and clicked on a video. At the beginning of the video, in a dark alley, a voluptuous young woman was quickly dragged in by 3 thugs. It was Wang Shanshan's mother, Bai Jing. The video of Bai Jing being bullied by the 3 thugs because you were in a hurry to go to Yundong district. You hadn't had a chance to watch this video carefully. After you recorded it that night, soon after watching the video, you had an idea. Although Bai Jing was forced, this coercion didn't last throughout the entire video. If you removed the beginning and the end, and only kept the middle part, it would clearly be a cheating video. You smirked. Well, my dear Uncle Wang, I hope you like it. With that, you opened the video editing software and got to work. Soon, in just a few minutes, you finished editing the video. After checking the video twice to make sure there were no problems. You copied it to a USB drive. At this moment, a call suddenly came to your phone. The caller ID, Sun Wei. Seeing this name, your eyes narrowed, and a murderous look appeared on your face. If you were asked who you wanted to take revenge on the most, then the first on the list would definitely be Wan Shanshan and her family. Because if it weren't for them, you wouldn't have been wrongly accused of murder and imprisoned for 10 years in your past life. And besides Wan Shanshan and her family, Sun Wei, who was calling you now, was definitely in the second tier. He could even be considered first tier. Sun Wei was your classmate for 3 years in high school. During those 3 years, you two had stayed up all night together, studied together, watched movies together, and smoked and drank together. It wouldn't be any exaggeration to say that you were best friends. However, this best friend of yours, after you were wrongly imprisoned, not only did he never visit you in prison, but he also badmouthed you everywhere, eager to distance himself from you. If that was all, you would have let it go. After all, the reputation of a murderer was indeed bad. If someone knew that so-and-so was good friends with a murderer, then subconsciously, they would label that person as a bad person. So if Sun Wei had only slandered you and badmouthed you to distance himself from you, you would have understood and wouldn't have blamed him. But Sun Wei shouldn't have. He shouldn't have, in his eagerness to distance himself from you, gone with another good friend of yours to dig up your grandfather's grave and scatter his ashes to you. Your grandfather was your only family. Your grandfather didn't live to see you fulfill your filial duty. You already felt very regretful that your grandfather didn't live to see you fulfill your filial duty, but Sun Wei and his other friend had even scattered your grandfather's ashes. This was something you could never tolerate. It was one thing that you couldn't properly fulfill your filial duty to your grandfather, but you couldn't even let him rest in peace. Then, what was the point of your grandfather raising you? He might as well have raised a dog. It was just that you didn't have the chance in your past life, otherwise, you would have long twisted off the heads of Sun Wei and his other good friend. Twisted off their heads. Thinking about this, you looked at the phone that was ringing non-stop on your computer desk. You answered it casually. Hello. The gloom on your face disappeared, and you instantly put on a cheerful expression. What's up, Sun Wei? Brother Kun, what are you up to? Sun Wei seemed to be chewing something. His voice was a little muffled. Nothing much, you said. I stayed up all night reading novels last night. I didn't go to bed until after 7 this morning, and I just woke up. Damn. Brother Kun, you're living the life this vacation, Sun Wei laughed. You slept until now. Come play cards. We're 1 player short. If Sun Wei had any hobbies, it was definitely playing cards. Whether it was Do Di Ju, poker, or Za Jing Hua, he was addicted to every one of them. He could even play all night long. If there was a little something at stake, he could even skip meals. You had even commented on him before, saying that he was like a demon when he saw cards. And in this short moment, you thought of a way to deal with Sun Wei. His weakness was too obvious, but now was not the time. You needed to wait a little longer. Thinking about this, you said, play cards. You know, I'm not very good at it, and I have to read novels. I'm going back to sleep later. Come on, Brother Kun, Sun Wei pleaded. Just come play for a while. What's so fun about reading novels? It doesn't matter if you don't know how to play. Just come and make up the numbers. We're not playing for money. No. 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 You refused. I'm so sleepy. I have to go back to sleep later. Seeing that you were determined not to come, Sun Wei could only give up. All right then. I'll see if anyone else can come. With that, he hung up the phone. You looked at the phone that had been hung up, and a sneer appeared on your face. My dear friend, cherish these few happy days of yours. You won't be happy for long. At 8:30 p.m. at the Biking District Snack Street, you walked over to a crowded snack stall. At this time, a man in his 30s was about to pay. He took out his phone from his pocket and started to unlock it with his fingerprint. But either his hands were oily or the screen wasn't working properly. He tried several times, but the fingerprint unlock failed. So he switched to entering his password. After unlocking his phone, he opened WeChat and scanned the QR code to pay. The whole process, except for the slight hiccup when he opened his phone, went smoothly. Pay, take the food, and leave. But the man didn't notice that as he was leaving, a boy slightly taller than him brushed past him. 5 minutes later, you walked out of the snack street when you came to a deserted place. You reached into your pocket and took out a phone. It was the phone of the man in his 30s from the snack stall. You hadn't spent 10 years in prison. For nothing, these petty theft skills were basic operations for you. There was no other way. There were too many talented people in this area in prison. You had learned it unconsciously. You entered the 6-digit password, 020304, and successfully unlocked the phone. You didn't bother to check if there were any compromising photos or videos in the phone. You directly opened WeChat, chose Add Friend, and entered a phone number. It was Wang Shanshan's father's, Wang Yifu's, phone number. As someone who had been simping for Wang Shanshan for 3 years, you not only had Wang Shanshan's phone number and WeChat, but also her parents' phone numbers and WeChat. So if you wanted to send a video to Wang Yifu, it was very simple. You could just send it through WeChat. But that would expose you, so you needed a WeChat account that Wang Yifu didn't know about to make sure Wang Yifu would accept your friend request. You even added a note, Wang Yifu, add me. Urgent matter. After you sent the friend request, it only took 3 minutes for a friend request notification to pop up. Along with it was a WeChat message from Wang Yifu. Wang Yifu, who are you? Wang Yifu, what urgent matter? Looking at Wang Yifu's messages, you smirked. You first transferred the edited video from your phone to this phone via Bluetooth. Then you reply, it doesn't matter who I am, what matters is, do you really know what kind of person your wife is? Thanks to simping for Wang Shanshan for 3 years, you knew Wang Yifu quite well. Wang Yifu was a very chauvinistic man, and he was very suspicious, even by Jing, who at a well-paying job before, was forced by him to quit because she had to travel occasionally for work. Because whenever Bai Jing went on a business trip, Wang Yifu would suspect that she was having an affair with other men. So you were sure that as soon as you sent this message, Wang Yifu would definitely take the bait. Wang Yifu would definitely take the bait. As expected, as soon as you sent the message, Wang Yifu immediately replied, Wang Yifu, who are you? Wang Yifu, and what kind of person my wife is, I know better than you. I know better than you. Don't think you can fool me. With a few words of provocation, my wife and I have a very good relationship. Seeing Wang Yifu's reply, you could barely suppress a smile. Well said. A man who doesn't even trust his wife to go on a business trip and forces her to quit her job. How dare he say such a thing? His mouth is the only tough part of him. You mocked him in your heart. Then you replied, TSK, TSK, TSK. You're such a pathetic man. To be honest, I almost don't have the heart to let you see the cruel reality. Wang Yifu, what cruel reality? Stop pretending. I absolutely trust my wife. You laughed, ha ha ha. At your age, you're so naive. Alright. Since you trust your wife so much, I won't show you the video of your wife being ridden by another man. Goodbye. Goodbye. Almost as soon as you sent the message, Wang Yifu immediately replied, Wang Yifu. Wait. You can't just leave like that. Wang Yifu. What video of being ridden by another man? You have to explain yourself, Wang Yifu. I'm telling you. That's definitely not my wife, at most. It's just someone who looks like my wife. Send me the video so I can see. Seeing these 3 messages from Wang Yifu, you couldn't help but grin. You couldn't help but grin. This was his trust. He said he trusted her. But his actions were full of suspicion, and then twisted it hard. Crack, you crushed the phone into a twisted mess. It was broken into several pieces. Finally, you threw the broken phone into the trash can and walked away leisurely as if nothing had happened. Meanwhile, in the bathroom of an apartment, Wang Yifu, who was sitting on the toilet, was watching the video playing on his phone. His fists clenched tighter and tighter, and the veins on his forehead bulged. He had thought that at most it would be someone who looked like his wife. Someone who looked like his wife, but the moment he opened the video, his heart sank. They were an old married couple. Wang Yifu was too familiar with Bai Jing's body. The woman's face in the video, as well as some of the features on her body, were exactly the same as Bai Jing's. Even her intoxicated expression and the sound she made in the video were exactly the same as Bai Jing's. So it was definitely Bai Jing. He couldn't believe that the wife he had shared a bed with for so many years had been cheating on him behind his back and with 3 men at the same time. As the 11-minute video ended, Wang Yifu could no longer contain the anger of being betrayed. He even forgot to wipe his ass and rushed out like a mad dog. In the living room, Bai Jing and Wang Shanshan were sitting on the sofa, watching TV. Watching TV, seeing Wang Yifu suddenly come out of the bathroom. Bai Jing frowned. She wanted to tell him to behave himself, he shouldn't be walking around in just his underwear in front of their daughter, but before she could speak, Wang Yifu pounced on her. "You bitch, I'm going to kill you." He slapped Bai Jing hard across the face. The slap stunned her. Before Bai Jing could recover, Wang Yifu grabbed her hair and started slapping her left and right. "Damn you! You slut, you can't live without a man, can you? Damn you, you're such a slut." The sound of Wang Yifu's angry curses and Bai Jing's screams stunned Wang Shanshan, who had never seen such a scene before. When she came to her senses, Wang Shanshan burst into tears. She rushed over and started hitting Wang Yifu. "Dad, are you crazy? What are you doing? Let go of my mom. How could two women possibly stop?" An enraged man, Wang Shanshan's intervention not only didn't calm Wang Yifu down, but it made him even angrier. "I work my ass off to support this family, and your mom cheats on me behind my back, and you're siding with your mom. You ungrateful wretch." Wang Yifu kicked Wang Shanshan in the stomach, sending her flying to meters away. She even rolled on the ground twice. On the other side, Bai Jing, who had been pinned down and beaten, saw her daughter being kicked away. Her maternal instincts exploded. With a roar, she scratched Wang Yifu's face with her nails. Bloody scratches instantly appeared on Wang Yifu's face. Seeing her parents fighting, Wang Shanshan, who was at a loss, burst into tears and took out her phone to call 110. "Hello? 110, my dad is trying to kill my mom. Come quickly. The address is Huayuan Residential Complex." After hanging up the phone, Wang Shanshan saw her mom being pinned down and beaten by her father again. With a loud shout, she suddenly picked up the TV from the TV stand and smashed it hard on his head.